Thank you so much for being here. We just finished the full interview. What's your 5 minute system?
Yeah, so my 5 minute system starts from sort of meta layer of planning. I'm thinking about, what is the most important thing in my life on a professional level, on a health or personal level, and how do I break that down into a manageable series of campaigns? And so I've been doing this for about 5 years, where I know from a meta level, I want to be the greatest founder of all time. I want to be the greatest founder that I can be, and building in the space that I care the most about, which is distributed healthcare. Um, to do that, I've got to have great health so that I can keep going and I can keep running the marathon. But we do this in a series of sprints. And so in pursuit of these sort of sub goals, whether it be specific product launches, specific milestones in the company's journey, or even specific personal health goals. I want to get my Whoop score to a certain amount, or what have you. I'm looking at this on multi-week campaigns, anywhere from 7 to 20 weeks at a time, where I'm asking the question of what is the most important thing I need to be doing across these very few domains, whether it be revenue targets, funding targets, hiring targets, or even health goals. I want to go to jujitsu a certain number of times a week. I want to train in the gym a certain number of times. I want to get better in my diet. All of these different attributes are very easy to kind of get overly fixated on if we can spread out the time in a very long period. And so I will constrain my focus to several weeks. Think of it almost like a company's quarterly planning. These are the targets that I'm going towards, and sometimes the targets aren't so much a outcome, meaning this is the revenue that we've got to be at, but rather inputs. I want to grow at X% week over week. I want to maintain a certain level of exercise during this period of time, and breaking these things down into either weekly cadence, daily cadence, and reviewing this on my own on a weekly basis, having that moment to say, how did the week go? What do I need to cut off that piled up in terms of new pursuits or new ideas? What do I want to add going into the next the next series of this campaign? In between these campaigns, I'll take a week or two off just to kind of let my mind rest, let my mind kind of wander, and free up that space so that I can get creative to start to think about, what actually matters. What are the things that I care about in terms of the direction I'm going in all of these areas? And that then gives me the sort of elasticity to then plan the next campaign. I'm on campaign number 17 now. And when I look at, the reflection over time, I keep track of these in these Notion files, basically, where I can see what has been my week over week progress. And as I was building up, the idea lab that led to this company, as the company has grown, as my own life has evolved from being this kind of bright-eyed founder to someone who's much more involved in this industry and has had much more experience, or even just my own health progress over time. It's been a beautiful journey because now we have the ability to kind of put all this content into an LLM and say, what are the patterns? What are the breakpoints? Where do I start to stumble? And start to really narrow in on my failure modes, so that I avoid, I shouldn't be eating late at night. Thank you, Brian Johnson. I should be doing things that are setting me up to have the highest level of energy, or I should spend most of my time in these areas of company building and hire out for these other areas, because I know when I get, too engrossed in, this area of product or this area of engineering, it holds us back from, a different area where I'm most capable in terms of my superpowers in the company. So all of that to say, these systems give me a really good sort of sounding board for myself, and a really great way to reflect and mirror back how my growth and progress is going, and gives me a compass to kind of check in and say, am I going in the direction that I want to, or what needs to change? And also, very importantly, time boxed. It should never be, at least for me, so long that I'm, doing this sort of Soviet 5 year planning method of life. That's no way to live.
Mhm. I love it. Can you give me an example, like a specific example of something that you implemented, and then how did you weave that system together?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the goals, last year was in pursuit of fundraising. And so understanding where we needed to spend time in the business to sort of understand whether or not we should fundraise and what sort of metrics matter, what sort of kind of relationships matter, and building up this kind of approach to fundraising that wasn't just a kind of randomness, but really kind of a week over week basis, saying, okay, I'm going to focus on these areas of the business to understand, do we want to raise capital? We raised 8.5 million from Bessemer. TQ Ventures and South Park Commons last year, and this was a very important milestone for the company. But to get there, we had to understand, is this the right foundation on which to raise on? And on top of that, should we be, what type of investors should we be working with, and having this sort of iterative process of building up those relationships, compiling all of the sort of information to have that internal clarity, and then when going out to market, to make it a really easy process for ourselves. What are the kind of materials that we need, as opposed to just reacting to, investor wants to chat, okay, I'll take the chat. Investor wants to, due diligence, okay, I'll go build a data room. Instead of all of that, having this sort of preparation and anticipation of a process that we're in control of. And I think that the results speak for themselves, because it was a very quick process. It was a very straightforward process for us, where we knew what our goals were. We did the kind of discovery work to understand what inputs matter to achieving those goals. And then we executed on a cadence that was very time boxed, and it allowed us to stay focused, so that if this wasn't the path that was meant to be, then it wouldn't stretch on beyond what it needed to.
I love that. And then what you're saying is you have to have a very clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish, and then building the systems. Because if you're being reactive, you're not making good decisions versus having proactive information and proactive steps that you want to take to fundraise, to build a team who, like what type of person are you looking for? What is that role? Everything needs to fit together. And I think this is a big part of why good systems work well. Everything kind of works together in lockstep versus ad hoc type of systems.
That's right. Yeah. And there is a place for, this sort of a kind of ad hoc approach, but within the constraints of are you kind of wandering in a controlled manner because you're exploring an idea maze, but you have a sense of these checkpoints to get you there. And then of course there is the sort of uh, just general creativity that comes from being in that mode of uh, total unguided wandering. And those things have their place, but that's the key here, is understanding what is the North Star, if there is one. And if there isn't, really leaning into sort of the dispersion, the kind of wandering process, because that itself can lead to a tremendous amount of clarity, and it comes with balance. It's a sort of cyclical nature, where there are moments of very high focused, structured methods of planning, and then there are pockets of time that are extremely distributed across many different projects, across many different ideas, and being very clear on which modality we're operating in.
Yes, you're giving yourself guardrails to be able to go down a certain path, but not go so far that you get lost in the weeds and all of a sudden you're 3 months in and it's not paying off for you.
That's right.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.